people. Welcome to We Brooklyn and welcome to another episode. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel. Okay, but welcome. I'm awesome. We got Caramel and Esso as we talk about our another part 2, Circle of Friends. So we just catching up. So yeah, we were just talking about fentanyl. Yeah, he died. Another comedian died named Fuquan Jackson or Johnson.
Yeah, from the same shit, right? Supposedly.
They all dying from overdoses of cocaine and fentanyl.
Yep. It's unfortunate. That's the new thing, cocaine and fentanyl, right? Cocaine and fentanyl.
Fentanyl is being cut with coke. The coke
is being... that's what I'm saying. That's a new thing. That's even inside of the weed too. Isn't that the issue with the fentanyl and the weed too? Isn't that one of the things?
Well, no, the issue with the weed is that people are actually taking fentanyl and lacing the weed with it. The problem with cocaine is that when you don't get pure cocaine, they tend to cut it with something, either like baking soda, some kind of, some other kind of, some people might even use baby powder to kind of like break down the substance so that the person will still get high, but they won't get the same high that they're supposed to get. But I guess with fentanyl, it gives you that high, but if you don't cut it properly, it can make the person overdose. I mean, our bodies are allergic to it. Hot, as soon as you absorb it, even with your fingers, too much of it, you stop breathing. It like literally goes after your organs just that quick. Like it takes a matter of seconds. So before you call an ambulance, it's usually a wrap with fentanyl. Fentanyl, yeah. That's a crazy
right. Damn. I mean, but what is fentanyl? Like, what really is that shit?
It's a drug. It could be a powder. It's usually a powder substance.
Synthetic drug?
It has to be synthetic because it's not on the chemistry chart. It's not on the periodic table. So that means it has to be a man-made mixed potion. I'm pretty sure of a couple of elements from the periodic table. However, it is not natural.
Right.
It is a synthetic.
So who died from it now?
Michael K. Williams.
Michael K. Williams and the other comedian.
It was
Fuquan, right?
Yeah, his name is Fuquan Jackson, I believe. And there also is a third person. I just can't remember who that third person is. But it's 3 of them. It's 3 of them that have passed away within a week span.
Yo, I heard a wild ass number like hundreds of thousands a year die from fentanyl.
Yeah, because it is a regular known substance used to cut coke.
So coke ain't really, the drugs itself ain't killing people. It's the shit that they making the drugs with.
It's
the lacing and cutting it with.
You're making it with.
I mean, it's synthetic and it's really, it seems to be super poisonous, but super strong. Like super addictive, maybe, because I just don't know why you would take that chance knowing that it.
His name is Fuquan Johnson. Yeah. The whole thing is that this is my thing. If you are a cocaine user and you're a long-term cocaine user, you usually know your cocaine. And for you to be a celebrity, you shouldn't really be trusting other people, especially in this time and environment. Now, there are some other bloggers and other people thinking that, hey, this is a conspiracy, especially when it comes to Michael K. Williams, because if you go on his IG page, he was definitely one that was moving towards change. Like he wanted to rebuild Black Wall Street. He lived in Brooklyn, he lived in Brooklyn, New York. That's where they found him passed away because he was actually supposed to attend a family event that weekend and he didn't show up and he didn't respond to his apartment. and walked in. Unfortunately, they found him deceased face down in his bedroom. So yeah, his death right now is being investigated as a suspected drug overdose. However,
so yeah, that's what I ain't gonna hold you. When I heard about it, I'm like,
but people have
how we know this ain't foul play?
Right. A lot of people, especially his fans, they're like, nah, something ain't right about this. Just because he was making, I'm telling you, you can check out his IG page. It still is up. His last post, I believe, was towards the end of August 29th, August 30th. I even went under there and was like, RIP, this is so sad. And it's interesting too, because he had this prayer that he just prayed in April, that he had wrote a post about. He was like, dear God, thank you for another day. Thank you for another chance to get it right, and, to make my mark in this life, keep me safe, and all this other stuff. And it's just, you just never know how life turns out, but unfortunately his drug battle was something that he did deal with and he struggled with all of his life. He does have one son. There was no mention as to what his relationship is like with his son. However, he doesn't want his family in the spotlight. That's why you had like people had to like really dig deep to see if he had any relatives or any immediate family, because he doesn't really speak about them, because his life as a celebrity, he doesn't want to put on them, which is completely understandable. It's just really sad because he is so talented, and he's an out actor, chocolate, black, handsome, beautiful, bisexual, and open about that, and just very, very good talent overall. So it's just sad, nobody means to take their life if it is an overdose. So
it could be, overdose. It could be be a mistaken overdose though. It ain't necessarily.
That's usually how overdoses happen. It's mistaken between but his drug of choice was heroin. But heroin is also another drug that's laced with fentanyl and cut with fentanyl. So yeah.
But as far as you said, a lot of stuff on his page, like as far as people with the theory that there's some foul play involved. What actually are they saying that people might be wanting to stop? What threat did he have? What was he doing? What was he into?
The people that made comments about it didn't necessarily go into it. They were just more like, it's foul play. They don't believe necessarily that he had an overdose. And, he was 54 years old, 54 years young, so yeah. And they're looking at fentanyl as being the eye of the culprit of, his death, unfortunately. They said that when they stepped on the scene, they recovered drug paraphernalia. He lives in a high rise in Williamsburg.
Mm.
And there was a synthetic opioid familiar to morphine that was about 400 times more potent found in his blood. So there was a high doses. He had high doses of the morphine opioid combined with other substances in his blood.
Oh, well, that sound like you trying to that sound like
they didn't release this, what I'm stating to you right now, until today. They didn't do it today, actually, until later on or earlier this afternoon. So the autopsy is still yet to be done, and what was the cause and the manner of death. But those were the things that were found in the blood, and those were the things that were found, the paraphernalia that were found around him. It's so sad. And right now they're saying it's a fentanyl overdose, just because they can't really yet identify the other drugs, but they've identified, what drugs he's accustomed to. However, they haven't named the, like what the other substances were that were in his system.
How long has he been dealing with drug use and
since an early age?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he started at an early age, like teens. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that shit is unfortunate. I mean, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's sad. And in the case of Fuquan Johnson, his was fentanyl laced cocaine. The interesting part is that he was having a party with two other people, and one of the women there at the party was the ex-girlfriend of Darius Rucker. And yeah, he died after overdosing in his Venice home Friday night.
Who's Dennis Rucker?
I'm sorry?
Who's Dennis Rucker?
I don't know. It says, I'm sorry, not Dennis, Darius Rucker.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is. But he died Friday along with two other victims that were pronounced dead at the scene. So
a couple of them had a overdose?
They all took it, and probably within seconds, they was all out. And 50 Cent. Go ahead.
Now go ahead with the 50 Cent thing. I'm gonna remember the question.
Yeah, no, I was saying it's really sad because he was renting a home in Venice. He was having a party, celebrating. Don't know what he was exactly celebrating, and he had guests over. And unfortunately, him and two of the other victims died from ingesting the fentanyl-laced cocaine. There is one person that's left, and that is the ex-girlfriend of Darius Rucker.
But you were saying something about 50 Cent.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about 50 Cent. So 50 Cent is catching a lot of heat. I meant to bring this up when I was talking about Michael, because he posted a picture of Michael on his Instagram, and he was like, man, you have to check out the new episode of Kanan where it deals with overdosing and fentanyl. Rest in peace, Michael K. Walker. Michael, what's his name? Michael Williams. And what did he say? Yeah, Kanan is on like Showtime at like 8 p.m. on Sundays. So he was getting a lot of heat because people was like, how you gonna say
he promoting a show?
Or for niggas deaf.
On the guy, but he has Michael's face there. You see what I'm saying? He has Michael K. Williams' face there. So it was like, people were like, how can you do that? How are you gonna? He was like, listen, I feel like it is sensitive to, and it's true. His episode on Sunday did deal with fentanyl abuse. That's how I understand it, because you saw it break down completely in the episode. The drug dealers had drugs. They didn't have enough cocaine to make it through the week. They took the fentanyl, cut it with the coke. They put too much fentanyl with it, and everybody who took that batch died. They all ended up dying in a crack house. It was sad, and it went on to more people ended up passing away in that episode too. But and you saw it. You saw how immediate it was as well in the episode. But the whole thing is that if you're not a Kanan fan, right? Because I'm a Power fan, so I just look at it. But if you wasn't a Power fan, I don't know if that would necessarily make me a Power fan. It would be like, where did you come from with this? And why would you mention that? Especially when he wasn't even an actor on Power.
Yo, that dude been trash. That's why I don't watch Power, because that shit is trash. I'm not saying the actual show is trash. The show is great. The writing is great. The direction is, good. But the show.
Luckily, he's only an executive producer, right? So he's really only there in name only. They gave it to him the first 2 years to see how Power would go, and once it became a hit, Starz snatched that right from him. And of course, he made a deal with it, and the writers and everybody. So all of the writing and everything that happens, he has nothing really to do with. He's just more like the name, the face. He might do he does the intro, and then and he works on the show. So, he also works on the show as a character. So right now he's narrating his younger life from his, from being his older self. So, but other than that, I just think 50 Cent, oh my God, he's a cancer too. It's just That's why I don't deal with cancer men. Okay, you think that cancer women are problems? No, cancer men are T. You know, and he is the P to the E to the TTY. Like, it's just like you ain't even have to do that. You know, it's just it was foul and it was in poor taste. And if I wasn't already a like Power fan or a Kanan fan, that would be something that would definitely turn me off and definitely would not let me. I wouldn't want to watch the show just because you had a fentanyl overdose. Like, really?
Yeah, I don't fuck with him. I ain't gonna lie.
What do you say? You've been quiet. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to give you guys the details.
I mean, but what I'm hearing is that you could have possibly gotten overdose, not because you personally put fentanyl in it, but somebody could put fentanyl in your cocaine to cut it to make it more. That's Correct. Different than somebody like, you know, putting fentanyl in it themselves. You know, if people are using it to stretch their stuff,
right?
You know,
right. So it's like giving it to them under a false impression, like, oh, this is just good. This is a good batch of Coke or whatever, right?
Right.
And them know that you cut it with baby powder, baking soda, fentanyl, you know, cough syrup, and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad, but it happens. You know, it's unfortunate. It happened to one of our friends that we grew up with. You know, he started smoking. He was smoking a joint with one of his friends. He didn't know that his friend had dipped it in embalming fluid, and he never came back from that. That opened up a whole gateway portal in his mind that he wasn't able to come back from. And he passed away. You know what I'm saying? God rest his soul. So it's like, you got to be careful. And these things are out here. I mean,
you know what? It was this dude though. It was this dude, and he got a lot of slack. And he was a writer. I think he was an investigative writer. And I think he actually studied some science and all of that. And he got a lot of flack because he said that basically like taking drugs is not really the problem. The problem is all of the different things that people do because drugs are legal and they have no regulation on it. So he said like crack and shit like that is not really addictive and it's not really a problem. He's like, if you use the proper way to use crack and, you know, use coke, it's not going to be this problematic thing where people are, you know, messed up in the streets. And I mean, he was on a couple of podcasts, Joe Rogan podcast. And I wish I had more. You think I know you talk? Yeah, he was very interesting.
I think he's some kind of doctor of something in like Harvard or one of these schools or whatever, and he's a drug user. He's a he uses drugs, you know, as you know, like how people do alcohol or whatever,
right?
Like,
leisurely,
and he had I think what I remember about it was like he had this whole concept that the illegalization of drugs is one of the reasons why it's in this position, because people got to sneak and take it and it's sold on the street and it's not more accepted in the society. So then it becomes this like underground kind of situation, and then
unregulated,
and all that stuff. And then it puts people in harm and jeopardy of becoming addicted, dying from it. And then like, I guess like the social stigma of taking drugs or whatever, you know, when it's like underground, illegal, and then leads to like people being in these situations. I think he was talking about how there's a lot of people who take drugs, but they take it leisurely and they're able to have a full lives.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, and he admitted to being a functional drug taker, you know, as less like people do alcohol. Because you got to remember things like alcohol and stuff like this before the whole like prohibition stuff, you know, it used to be like a serious drug, you know, it became, and people were making it and they were making that moonshine and all them different things that's killing people and destroying, you know, a lot faster because it's like an underground thing, like a bootleg thing. And then once it became legal, you know, not saying that people aren't alcoholics and stuff like that, but it just changed the social parts of it. And then people knew how to drink and stuff that you talk about on a regular basis. And then it no longer is like just a killer of people, you know, like just, you know, like it's more like it can kill you because you become an alcoholic, but it's like legalized and kind of like structured inside of the society.
Right.
And so I think he was making a comparison because I think he has a book or something or a paper. He made a comparison to, I wish I could remember his name right now, but I really suck with names when I do. A comparison to how just alcohol was basically on the same level before it became legal and socialized and inducted into people's society. Now it's not a big deal. You can get it from the corner store. You can get it from, you know, from anywhere, you know. So I remember him, and he had admitted to his own personal use of drugs.
I mean, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense when you talk about these deaths with the fentanyl recently. I mean, had they been in a situation where their product was tested, not tested, but, you know, made sure that there wasn't no other shit in there, they could have had their drugs and enjoyed themselves and not been dead. It's because, like you said, it's really the fact that they putting something in it that you probably don't know that's in there. You know what I'm saying? And if that's the case, that's, you know,
you murdering people.
Yeah, you murdering people.
You're killing people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You putting cyanide in the biscuits. That's, you know what I mean? I just wanted some biscuits. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that's something that, you know, once you get over the stigma of it, it's something to explore, because people were kind of thrown back when he was talking about that. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, because
I think it makes some sense, because I feel like people are going to use drugs regardless. If people, it's not like people are not going to use drugs, whether you make it a social stigma or whatever the question may be, and you put criminalization to it and whatever you do, doesn't matter. People are still going to use it, you know? So it's probably better if it's all out in the open, you know, because it becomes somewhat safer for people to use it, you know? In some ways, you know, so because I mean, you hiding it, well, you have people smuggling drugs in every day. This country makes a lot of money through drugs.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
So much money.
And it's always been that way. And you're not gonna stop people from using drugs. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna stop them. You know, jail not gonna stop them. You know, people who are using it that they don't need to be using it, or it's only gonna be themselves who is able to stop, you know, and decide to get off of it and go into rehab and do whatever they're gonna do. But people are gonna use it, and a lot of people use it for partying and whatever. You're not gonna stop it.
It's a lot of money to be made off of the illegalization of it too. Like, to be fair, you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, you got all types of task force that's, I mean, millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars in the prevention and the borders and the this and the that. Like, so many people make money off the prevention of drug use. Probably more than, you know what I'm saying?
Like, then you have those that run right in the middle that make money on both sides. They're paid to, you know, like work for the DEA or CIA. And those are the ones that's supposed to be stopping the drugs. And they make it look like they're stopping the drugs, but they're also making it clear for drugs to come through. Like, all the drugs can't continue to come through the US if people were really doing their job and holding fast to everything. You wouldn't have as many drugs as you do. But I'm just looking at the amount of opioid deaths lately. Like, in the past 2 weeks, there's another gentleman named Malik Rahman. He was at the 40th Precinct Station House in the Bronx. He was held there. But before he could be released and reunited with his daughter, he passed away of a synthetic opioid that was smuggled in by another inmate. Then there were 3 people that passed away in a house in Brooklyn, like in the Flatbush area. One was 57, one was 55, and the other one was 58. it was 4 victims. The other one was 59. The EMTs were able to revive her, but the other 3 passed away. They died on the spot. So I'm thinking whoever gave out this bad batch, they obviously, the Connect messed up this time. Somebody messed up. And apparently that bad batch, you can see it. You can literally see how it's affecting, the community.
Damn. It's not, I mean, yeah, that's fucked up. That's fucked up.
And speaking of drugs, well, this is not really a drug, but he might as well have been on drugs. R. Kelly. I haven't heard any more follow-up from what I thought appeared as a threat regarding his tweets. But the things that are coming out in this trial.
What else you heard?
You want to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
All right, you asked for it. So, they did more commentary about how he was grooming these gentlemen. First of all, let's just say that McDonald's was his home base. All right. He was not only picking up girls in the place, but he was picking up the boys in the drive-thrus. Okay. There was one particular gentleman that went on the stand. I believe this was around trial day 8. He went on the stand to testify, John Doe, that when he first initially met, he's like 25 now. When he first initially met R. Kelly, he was 17 years old, working a drive-thru at what? McDonald's. He wanted to get into the music business, and he was a rapper. So he gave R. Kelly, his information. R. Kelly, in exchange, took his information as well, right? He arranged to meet him at the studio that was in his house privately at the time when he had his base there in Chicago. He came, but when he came, he went with his parents because the boy is smart. He ain't stupid, but R. Kelly found a moment to slip him away and tell him the next time you come here, don't bring your parents. So the boy, the next time he went, he did not bring his parents. That was when he was first sexually assaulted by R. Kelly, where R. Kelly was asking him questions like, have you ever been with a guy before? How does it make you feel? Does it turn you on? Things of that nature. And after vetting him, what R. Kelly did was crawl over to him on his knees, on all fours, and commenced to begin to start fellatio on the young man. But while he was in the process of doing, this, the boy was not only astonished, he didn't know how to respond, and his body did not respond the way that R. Kelly wanted his body to respond. So R. Kelly asked him, are you not enjoying what I'm doing? And the boy was like, I'm not into boys. And R. Kelly was like, don't worry, eventually you will be. So yeah, that was the start, I guess, of a sexual love affair. So I'm pretty sure that the young man was uncomfortable every time, but even in being uncomfortable, he still found a way to, find a comfort in it, because this went on for years. And of course, R. Kelly had him be with him. And then there were times that he would force him to be with other females, including his other women that, were locked up. And yeah.
Yo, see, I ain't gonna lie. You know what I got out of that whole story, as wild as it seemed? I got out of that whole story that sexuality can be persuaded, and it can be influenced, and it can be manipulated, because I think it's a thin line. I think it's a thin line between your preference and what you've been exposed to. This is why I feel like a lot of people who have been molested as kids, whether it be boys or girls, but I'm gonna just talk about the boys right now. I find that a lot of them have issues when it comes to their sexuality. Now I'm not saying I don't mean I don't really know that many, but from like TV and things you read in situations like that, I find that they always have an issue with their sexuality, some sort of confliction. I'm not saying an issue, but it definitely doesn't. If it's a scale, a slider, it definitely don't stay on strictly female, 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 female. It's always like this little leniency. And I think it's because they were introduced to a sexual act very early without there being a firm stance on how they particularly feel about it. And then when they get older and they realize like, okay, I actually stand on the side, I want to be strictly with a woman, they now know that physically and mentally they can be stimulated by men. So now they're a little bit conflicted. So actually, that's what I got out of that whole story just now, that Duke wasn't into it. And if you would have left him alone, he probably would have went his whole life and never did that. But all of a sudden, through some persuasion and some early access to his brain and to his physical, he now went on to have this love affair, quote unquote.
But you also have to keep in mind that he did it with the promise that, you know, R. Kelly was going to sign him and, you know.
Sure, I just don't think you can do that to. I just don't think you can do that to a 27-year-old who made up his mind and you know what I'm saying, made up in his mind like, yo, I don't rock like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck what you offering me. That ain't gonna take place. But when you young,
it depends on the 27-year-old.
I mean, of course, if you're impressionable and you know, but I feel like that's the danger of messing with kids and exposing them to things too early, because they can be swayed. That's what I feel. That's what I got from that whole situation.
I mean, they could be swayed, but let's keep in mind that sexuality and being physically turned on are two completely different things, right? Because even in cases of rape, you might have a woman's body react to it as if, you know, she's physically given permission for that act, but she can't help it because physically that's the way her body would react if, you know, whether she gave permission or not. It's a physical reaction, right? I feel that comes into play also when you look at molestation or, you know, kids exposure. In his case, he was 17. He didn't respond at first. Eventually, he probably did respond. But this is all in the coax and holding it to his hand. Yes, I'm going to give you a record deal. Yes, I'm going to continue to work with you and give you studio time. It took him about 2 or 3 years of being in that before he realized that was never going to happen, right? I don't think that, you know, kids are not exposed to either side. I think it's just more of them understanding the sexuality versus the physical. Because then you have some kids that happens to them and then they blame themselves for, you know, possibly being turned on. In the case of boys, you know, being turned on or, you know, getting erect or getting excited and responding to it, whether they wanted to or not. You know, you don't want them to blame themselves, but you want them to be able to understand the differences between those. Caramel, what do you say?
Well, I have the unfortunate situation of knowing quite a few young boys. You know, they're not necessarily young boys now, but young people, male in particular, since we're talking about that, who were like molested as children, you know, like 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, sometimes by people that they're very close to, family members, family friends, just as we talk about like with girls. And as they're now adults, really being conflicted because they spent so much time, you know, a lot of their first sexual experiences were with males, a lot of times a lot older, you know, and because they've had arousals and a lot of them say it was actually, a lot of stuff was painful and different things like that, but it's still what you were what you were what was done to you early before you decided on anything or before you had any real other experiences. And a lot of them now are very tormented. Like they're like, I want to get married, I want to have kids, you know, but I have this, you know, I have this situation, these situations happen to me that I've been living my life out of all this time. You're right, you know what I mean? And they feel like even if they wanted, some of them feel like even if they wanted to get with a woman, you know, they don't even really know how to be with a woman, you know, and or if a woman can pleasure them in a way that they are used to, because not, you know, in a way that really, because they're so used to this other way that was pretty much, you know, put upon them, you know. And I've seen people go through a lot of turmoil over it, and shame, you know,
Right.
a lot of shame around it. I mean, I've had friends of mine, some people I know, cry about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about male crime, you know, just reverting back to those experiences as a child or as a teenager, how it's basically tethered their lives, and how even with their wanting to do something different, may not even feeling like I'm manly enough to, not really knowing how to, and don't even know if, and feeling like they've been tainted sexually, that now even if they wanted to be with a woman, it may not give them the same level of pleasure. You know what I'm saying?
So these people, these men, they don't even entertain the idea of being with a woman? Because I always thought that
some of them
a lot of them actually go to women and like they get on some extra you know, some extra mucho shit, like, you know, macho shit, like I'm a man, like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's also another thing that might cause people to be a little bit overly violent and overreactive, because they always trying to protect their manhood, you know what I'm saying? Because they have this incident that happened to them when they was a kid, they question their manliness. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I always thought that. I didn't know that they'd be sitting on the sidelines waiting to jump in. I thought they jump right in.
I guess you get both. You have both.
Right.
You have the people who decided, or they've been able to pivot or try to pivot into trying to do that other sex thing, you know, or trying to get with other sexes or whatever. And then you have the ones who don't even like want to have that relationship or family situation, right? But don't know if they can like commit totally or be on the right up and up, or even know how to interact really in those kind of situations. Because, you know, sometimes once you get started doing something, and then say something happened to you at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and now you 22, right? 23, you've been basically doing that like over 10 years. You know what I'm saying? You're still young, but you've been doing that over 10 years. That's what you've been indulging in. You know what I'm saying? That's what people have been doing to you, you know, because you can't even say people, especially if it's people being molested as children and then consistently being molested by people, you know, like a lot of times it goes long term too. A lot of times don't be just one act, one time.
Right.
You know, it'd be like you get in, just like how we have a lot of women getting, you know, molested, having several acts happen to them over time, over period, you know. A lot of times, I mean, sometimes it's one time, but a lot of times it's not one time. Somebody is like praying, somebody's like preying on you, you know what I'm saying, from a childhood or teenagehood or whatever, all the way, well, how many years or whatever, until this is all you know, you know?
Right.
And now you wonder, now some people try to be with women and then they're like, you know, there's also some physicality to these situations, you know, like, well, that needs gloves. There's always some physicality to these situations, excuse me, where you know, especially if you're getting like certain parts of your body is being things, and certain things are reacting, and like there's certain ways that people are intimate in different kind of relationships, and then you may not know how to do that you may not do the other side of intimacy with like a woman or something, because people have ways, or sexes have ways they interact with each other that may be different. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just it's a lot. I wish in a way that it was talked about more and looked at more.
The funny thing, the funny thing is when I hear it, I don't really see the big deal from people. Like y'all familiar with Raz B from
Yes.
B2K? You know what I'm saying? He went extensively and told what's the dude name? His uncle?
His cousin. Chris Stokes.
Chris Stokes. He went
allegedly
extensively. I'm saying what he said. He extensively went into detail, and not just, oh, he did this, he did. No, he named names. He told degrading things that he felt were degrading that he had to do, and it was like the industry, and Marquise Houston was also in that.
So was Omarion and the rest of B2K.
I ain't hear about Omarion.
Allegedly.
I ain't hear about his participation.
Yes.
I only heard about Omarion and my bad.
Marquise Houston
and him and some other people that we don't know. But it's just crazy because it was like the industry heard it. They didn't really bat an eye. It was like, and then you got what's this other dude from that crew in the Bronx, Africa Bambaataa. He was also doing like R. Kelly type shit, allegedly, from what people were saying. Grooming young boys early, very early. You know what I'm saying? Having them come over and doing that same thing you try. I guess there's a playbook where you do something to them first and kind of introduce them, walk them through the door. You know what I'm saying? Of being with a dude. And it's like no charges are being introduced.
Do you know how difficult it is to deal with the male ego? And how much pride and emotion is attached to that? Do you know if a male comes forward?
But they have come.
But they still come forward, unfortunately, with a certain stigmatism that becomes attached to them when they become forward.
Right? I think what S is saying is why there are no legal actions, like
why there's not even a social reaction. It's almost like you would think that,
you mean the way that there is with R. Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Right. You would think like, oh, this is, even with the R. Kelly thing, it's like we know he did it to the girl. Now we're hearing about the boys, and it's still like, oh wow, that's crazy. But it should be like mind blowing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It seemed like,
to me, it should
like
only
the
be
male is just like, deal with it, champ.
Well, no, I think that the thing about it is money talks. As far as when it comes to Chris Stokes and everything that he allegedly did that Raz B put out there, Chris Stokes has found a way to shut down Raz B at every course, in every way, right? In addition to that, Raz B didn't help himself out having a couple of altercations with the law and with his mental health. So that is something that, Chris Stokes is using to his advantage. And he can, in a lot of ways, Raz B reminds me of one of my, friends from the summit. But he's conflicted. You could tell that he has mental health issues that he goes in and out of. He had the issue of domestic violence with his girlfriend that, he was able to come back from, but he still admitted to doing it because that was the space that he was in. And of course, with his therapy and everything coming out with his mental health, he was able to uncave that this was like one of the core things that he needed to get out and get. Now, everybody hears his story, but they still think of him as being crazy or they discredit him. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of people believe Raz B, but it's just that in order for his story to be true, people like Marquise Houston would have to admit to it, Omarion, B2K members, that he also stated that, he allegedly had to perform acts with, along with Chris Stokes. Somebody would have to back him up. And you could tell that they all had a meeting behind his back and they're like, we're not backing him up. Because then that will also call into question their manhood.
Yeah. I understand. Like certain people can't, and I don't even want to put that out there because they might not have been through anything. But
no, according to Raz B, they were, okay? Because they were all in it together. It's in there, okay? If you go back and you look at, some of the things that he said in some of his interviews, he put that he wasn't the only B2K member that was in the room doing. Now he started out early on because that was his cousin, that was his family member. Go figure, right? It's the same reason why under the trial too, people were questioning, or they brought, the priest that performed the ceremony over R. Kelly and Aaliyah's marriage. They brought forth the medical doctor that also confirmed that she was with child at the time that she was 15, okay?
Can I ask y'all a question?
He wasn't the only one doing it. They were all, there was a couple of them allegedly doing it all at the same time. And yeah, he should definitely be arrested, but there is a couple of other people that should be arrested. I know that somebody did something to Usher. Is Usher gonna ever admit it? No, allegedly. But we know, like, listen, Aaliyah spent time with R. Kelly and the uncle. She wasn't the only child that was signed off by other adults to work with them on their album, where these other adults exposed them to different kinds of things. Usher was signed off to Puffy. That's how he did the 8701 album. He did that one, and like half of the one after that. They were young. You mean to tell me that these adults stopped living their life with Cristal and champagne and bros and hoes for it gave up all of that because they was like, nah, I gotta be a positive influence for this young mind. Or did they just introduce them to an early lifestyle that they was gonna have to get adjusted to anyway? Even back
honestly, it seemed like all of those rumors about the industry and the backdoor deals, the literal backdoor deals, and the this and that, it seems like, yeah, that might have some validity to it, as far as it's a lot of little funny shit that probably go on behind these closed doors, and it's probably it's the access to go through the rest of the doors. You know what I'm saying? Are you willing to play these games and keep a secret? Yeah, and the
access starts with between your legs. What are you willing to give up? So that's why when you had mentioned earlier and you were like, oh, even a 27-year-old would still be like, nah, I know where I am. I can't necessarily say that, depending on how bad they want to get in the business. You know what I'm saying? I know that the story is out there. It's just going to come up. Who is going to come by, and from who, remains to be seen, allegedly. But we know that somebody done bent over on the couch or done laid down on the couch on more than one occasion, not only for, the music industry, but also, for acting or whatever.
So
that's a well-known fact.
On that,
I'm not saying everybody does it.
On that note, nah, it's probably too soon. But it's too soon.
Okay.
I won't mention. But
I mean, I got some other stuff that I could tell you, but we would have to do that off camera behind the scenes.
Right. But I'm just saying there's certain people who got a lot of roles and they have known dual sexualities. And I'm wondering, like,
it's it's more common in the industry than you think. And the funny thing is that I grew up in a time of Tevin Campbell. We used to sing his song. People like, oh my God, he's good. And they'd be like, listen, you don't even know. And it's funny because Jason Lee, he said it the other day. He was like, everybody is out here, mad at R. Kelly because he's in trial or whatever, and his truth is coming out. He was like, you don't really want me to speak my truth. He was like, because I know who is acting straight, but all they do is love the D. Okay. And I'll tell you who is really, and it's true.
Who said that? Tevin?
No.
Oh.
Jason Lee said that. He's from Hollywood, Hip Hop Hollywood. So Hollywood Hip Hop. So he has like his own channel. But when he was discussing the R. Kelly trial, and when he was thinking about back in the day about Tevin Campbell and how all these other people, you had like certain artists that celebrities would like try to out and play. They would simple herb them. You know what I'm saying? Tevin Campbell unfortunately was one of them. But was he doing anything that another artist wasn't doing, or another producer or executive producer wasn't doing behind the scenes? No, he wasn't. Plus, he was young and he was trying to find himself. So picking on a kid didn't make any sense. But you had grown men, okay, that knew what they were doing and knew how they was doing it. And it goes back to that grooming. And the only way you know how to groom like that is if you've been groomed yourself, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? You know how to pick those things out because you inhabit those things, or you did at one time. You know how to hone in on it. So who was once the victim now becomes the master. And unfortunately the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah.
It's a sick psychology.
But and that's the thing. It's like age is such a topic when it comes to sexuality. But there are people, as you mentioned, whether they're 27 or 17, who are vulnerable and just very, palatable to impression. You can move and sway them and manipulate them. And I just think, age is a great barometer to say, it cuts off here. You should, but it's weird because literally one day is the difference between being a monster and getting them fresh and young. You know what I'm saying?
Not even a day.
Literally one day.
It literally
one
only
hour.
takes a second or an hour. Not even, less than that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
For violations and assaults can happen so quickly. They can happen.
No, but seconds. I meant when I said one day, I meant the difference. Like between being 16 years old and 17-year-old is literally, a minute, a different. You know what I'm saying? So if I had sex with you in December and your birthday is in January, and then that makes the biggest difference in the world as to whether I'm the monster or I just got them young. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When really it's like, it's so many different factors that, should it be more than just age when it comes to if you are, a predator or whether you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's just a weird concept that this little
it definitely should be more than age. I mean, but see, the thing about it is that you do have young predators out there, but the thing is that young predators usually are targeting even younger ones, right?
Right.
And then with that, depending on who they're targeting, those younger people that are being targeted may not come forward, or those younger people that are being targeted, they might not be believed when they do disclose it. We're more in an environment now where if a child tells you something, you have to believe it. Even in my line of work, whatever, if a child is telling me one thing and the staff is telling me another, and there was no camera or nothing to like validate like what one person said over the other, whether the child was lying or not, I would still have to go with what the child said over the staff. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So in that way, those times have changed. Have they always been like that? No. So when we look at like, from the time that we were younger and all the people that we admire, you just look at those younger artists like Monica, Foxy Brown, Lil Kim, she was the only one with Junior Mafia. So you can only imagine if that was a possibility. But you know, those things were happening, right? Not saying that she did anything, all right, because we don't know, right? But other groups, Brownstone, how many of them had to sleep to get on? How many of them had to keep sleeping to stay on? You know, it wasn't really all just about your talent, you know, unfortunately. So it's just it's like, where does that cycle end of sickness, right?
Yeah.
Disney kids, we ain't even gonna get into all the Disney kids between the drugs and the sex and the out, you know.
I mean, what I was saying, what I think what S was talking about too is just like, you know, in our society, we use age to be the cutoff of if you did something wrong or not. You know what I'm saying? And it's because I think we just need like something monotone, something that you can look at to calculate. It's not because I don't think it's really, you know, like you say, oh, at 18, then it's legal. You know what I mean? But like you said, the difference between 18 and 17 is a minute past 12, right? So, or 12 o'clock on the midnight, you know what I mean? Based on like our time system. But then our people, by the time, if you're 17, you know, at 11:59, and then somebody do something to you at 12 o'clock and you're 18, you know, are you not emotionally, you know, and everything just the same as you were when you were like 17 a minute ago, you know? But now that person won't necessarily be in trouble or would necessarily be looked upon in our society as doing something wrong because they hit the marker, the time marker of like what, you know, like what we put up as what's time. And, you know, unless it's, you know, some like violent offense where you pull somebody and, you know, and they come out and say that you raped them or whatever, you know, the question may be or whatever. So it's touchy. It's just messed up that, you know, vipers and, and you know, vampires, you know what I'm saying, like look for people, whether they're young, or whether they're, like you said, as whether you're just vulnerable person to look to take advantage of, you know? And you know, how many people have been on like just hanging with friends or somebody or hanging with somebody and they didn't expect them to like assault them. You know what I'm saying? As you're like an adult or whatever, you know, you trusted them, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, we got to start looking in terms of like our society. What kind of society is this? You know what I'm saying? Like
facts. And like, I don't even know when you think about like, how could you fix it? It's almost like it's just so much things to look at and so many people to have to regulate. It's almost like I can't mentally imagine. How
I think that's why the age. I think that's why they just put an age thing, like
okay, they just put 18. The age,
and then like we good from there. You know, at least we could put that as a that's a child or whatever. You know, but it doesn't change either, though, that a lot of times it's still your word against somebody else. Because what people are not talking about with the whole Aaliyah thing is when that whole thing happened with R. Kelly, and it was speculated, like people, it was put out in, you know, like in different things that with the marriage certificate and all that stuff. And what happened was they basically pulled her from the market. She was gone for like 3-4 years before she came back out. She didn't come back out until she was like, what, like 18 or something?
Oh, I never noticed that part. I definitely never noticed that part.
Yep. She was, after that happened, she separated from him and everything. And she didn't come back out for like 3 years. And when she did, she was with Missy and Timberland, and it was
and all
Baby
that.
Girl.
Yeah. And
that was it.
People didn't talk about what happened to her within those 3 years. Maybe that was counseling and different things like that. But also she got like blackballed because he was the bigger artist. And he was the one making people money, and no one came forward and talked about it, even though she was an artist that had a hit album, but she was under him. He was like R. Kelly, you know what I'm saying? Like this.
So he really did what he deserved, really, honestly.
Yeah, because if you think about it, Yeah,
money and power.
Yeah, because
and he was going everywhere with her. People knew that they were a couple. It was just one of those things that just was not said.
It's just one of those things too, where and then you saw the difference because the first time around when she came out, you never used to see her family with her like that. You know what I'm saying? But when she came back out, she came back out, that's you see her brother would always travel with her. Sometimes her mother, sometimes
the mother, and I feel so bad for the family too. But go ahead.
So and people never talked about how she was blackballed in the industry and how she was left without no one to protect her except besides her family, really, possibly. And it stopped her music career, even though she was a top trending artist, because he was the bigger artist, he was the producer, he was the star of the whole thing, and she was a child, but they swept it under the table. Because come on now, you got an artist who's a child who's also has a hit album, they're with this person all the time, and now they end up pregnant, and you got a marriage certificate. Like, you had the proof to put him away. You know what I'm saying? So it had to be some systematic thing where they put the pressure on the family, and probably also the family didn't want to taint her. You know what I'm saying? Felt like it would be like a taint on her. But they did. She was tainted. She had to go out of the limelight for like 3 years.
Wow.
After having a top album because of this situation. So it's like the victim got punished. You know what I'm saying?
Double time. Okay.
The child got punished or whatever, and that's what the whole thing with that monetary whatever. Right now, R. Kelly's getting all this. One of the reasons he's getting all this is he ain't dropping no hits. And he ain't making no money for people.
Yeah, all his money dried up. And
you know what I'm saying? If he was
surviving R. Kelly, all his concerts and most of that was canceled.
Yeah, but he already had become, he was no longer top
the big machine that he used
that he was to be. You know what I'm saying? So
because as far as albums, but hold on a second, because he was still writing for people, because he even have songs, up with like Queen Naija, and she's just like an artist that just came out. He has been writing, so that was his real bank of money. And then he was going around
but he wasn't a top artist anymore, because before he was a writer, producer, top artist. You know what I'm saying? And it's a difference between you writing somebody that has like a minor hit and you're writing stuff that's mega hits, because the money is different. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just saying, I'm not saying he wasn't working at all, but he definitely wasn't R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying? So the whole thing of protecting him, people had no longer no fist in the fight to protect him, and he may no longer had the money that he used to use to make sure that he could bribe people to not say nothing.
Right.
So it kind of fell on the left. It's like he broke off on his success situation. Because I'm sure in Chicago, I know for a fact, I know people that used to tell me about him that lived in Chicago, who went to these schools, who were in these McDonald's, who would see him doing his thing. And you know what I'm saying? It wasn't no secret. It wasn't a secret. You know what I mean? It was out in the open, but you got to think now, you got these DAs and these different people and whoever else they fizzling money to, or they keep, you know what I mean? Like, you're the big star of your city. Nobody wants to put you on blast. You're making money for your city. You making whatever.
They need something.
And in this way, it's no different than the drug game. Like we were talking about earlier with the DEA and everybody else that comes under fire, or, you give them a little bit of money and you're able to get that hush hush. All right. And I feel bad for Aaliyah's family. That's the only thing I wanted to say, because when all of this stuff came out, it kind of just confirmed what everybody knew, but they had like swept under the rug. And of course, they're getting a lot of judgment for it. People are like, they're horrible parents. They sold their daughter. That's why, that happened. And it was just like, look, they gave guardianship to the uncle. The uncle is the one who let, him do whatever. And the uncle, he's still trying to rebuild himself after that whole thing happened. I mean, I think she's getting her payback from them in their own little way. She might also be responsible behind the terror, that R. Kelly's facing. God rest her soul. So,
I mean, it's a lot of. I mean, trust me, if he was top number one on the Billboard and he had whatever, and he was making lots of money and in the same whatever, right, that machine that kept him, safe all this time, because most of these things are not even new. A lot of them are not even new. I mean, we literally saw R. Kelly in a video and he got off. Like, there was a video of him, right, doing certain things to a minor, you know what I'm saying? And he was able to not have any criminal charges. You know what I mean? He was able to settle that. Even if a family wants to settle that, the district attorneys and whatever can say no. Like, they can sue, people could sue you for money or whatever if they want to. Doesn't have anything to do with the criminal case. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
Right. And they could continue with a criminal case regardless if the plaintiff or whatever wants to comply or not, especially if there's been a statement made or there's some video and stuff like that. So there was no doubt about it. She was a person in the video. There's no doubt about it. She was a minor. I mean, you got to think about it. She was the niece of one of his artists she was the one who found out and put it on blast. Whatever. That was her niece. Right. You know what I mean?
And even when she put it on blast, it was years before this, the surviving R. Kelly, and she got pushed back. He balled her too, Sparkle.
Yeah.
She got blackballed.
He blackballed her.
She whiteballed.
That was the end of her career.
She whiteballed her, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, she whiteballed. He whiteballed her. That's right. Let's change
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah, I mean, she was an artist. She was out there. She put her career on the line to protect her niece.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To protect her niece, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. And she should be lauded as a hero. She should have a deal right now. She should have something.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, she went up against the machine.
She went up against, and the sad part is that her niece's own biological family didn't support and back her. You see what I'm saying? They allowed the machine to buy them.
Her niece is not even on it no more. Her niece is actually became a predator.
Right. We've had that conversation before, but what I'm saying is when it initially happened and everything was coming out, he bought them. He bought the mother and the uncle, her brother. He bought their silence to say that it was something else and that was not her in the video. When your own mother says that that's not you in the video, that is what that's what they eventually upheld and, went with. That's why he was let off of those charges. And because he was let off of those charges, that gave him more of the feeling of invisibility. So what do you do when somebody has money and power and they just get off from something? That gives them even more power.
Yeah.
No, well, they pushed it further. And that's how you have the things you're hearing about now. You know what I'm saying? It's not like people say, oh, I got away with that. And then me sitting in a sideline and like chill. You're like, oh, I could do whatever I want. And I'm never going to pay any consequences because they got me on video and I'm still getting off.
And
you know what I mean?
And what was sick too about him too, and I guess he thought that he was protecting himself, but this also showed how he was serial in his behavior, and it came back on him. He made everybody write a letter about how their parent or somebody molested them, and that it was him that helped save them, or that it was
he was
about
very
their parents or something, or he was like, "Oh, you stole money from me, and you're admitting that you stole like $50,000." And this is you're staying with me and like helping me out in order to pay it back. So he was like, he got like
he was a cold, calculating,
very calculated, and that's what I'm saying. He couldn't have been this calculated by himself because when he started, when it was R. Kelly and public announcement, he didn't know how to read. All right, so somebody had to help groom his groom.
But I mean, maybe his intelligence.
Yeah, reading doesn't really.
Yeah, like that's a fundamental intelligence. He probably got,
Listen,
all
I'm saying
types
you still
of...
have to sign contracts and all that other stuff. I mean, I'm not taking for granted that, his education level improved, but he definitely had some help along the way. And he wasn't the only one. You know, he's just the one that we're talking about. If everybody else had the machine behind them, like when it initially started, there would be more people under the table. If Hugh Hefner was alive, he would have some questions to answer, especially in the Bill Cosby case, because most of the females that are accusing Bill Cosby came from the Playboy Mansion that were underage. So what was you doing over there? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that
It's
Bill
a lot of
Cosby
people
shit,
that have to be accounted for. A lot of people, actors, you know, it's about having that money, that access, you know, and unfortunately, you know, you can have all the money, you still got to watch your back, whether it's sexually, we're intimate with people, or whether you partying and doing drugs. You know, you don't know if somebody going to lace your stuff.
I mean, clear.
Well, go ahead.
Oh shit.
You gotta. Oh, clearly, you know, like if you look at the Weinstein situation, the Harvey Weinstein, when you had all them actresses, most people come out and say how, you know, he was telling people, if you want to get this job, if you want to get this thing, you know, and even blackballing some of them when they didn't do what he wanted. And then he was, you know, some people he was trying to get to do things to them when he was in the house with his family. Like a lot of people came over to his home to talk to him, whatever, feeling like, oh, this is home, his family is, that you invite him, he invites you over for a luncheon or something like that, and then bring you in a room. Nobody's feeling any kind of way, because they're like, oh, his wife is in the other room, his children in the other room, there's other people in the house, you know? He's not nobody's gonna try anything, you know?
It's about that power, you know, and it's the audacity for me.
Yeah, so, you know, you had a lot of actresses. I mean, that's how come he got convicted. So many people came out talking about what he did to them or what he tried to do. Some of them was what he tried to do. Some of them was what he did, you know, and like big name actors. I think like even I think allegedly, I think even Lupita had a thing about what he tried to do to her at his home, and she got away from him. You know what I mean? By using whatever she used mentally and whatever, you know. So for a lot of them, if you ain't doing that, you're not getting put on. You know,
it's true. It's sad, but it's true.
And they will get you in a situation to make you feel comfortable by having people around, and then do something to you right in the next room. Like that's the whole thing. That's, I think, happened a lot with these kids. You know, some people talk about that, like Jaguar Wright and stuff like that, how you would be in the next room and people always doing things to your kids, you know, while you there, you know, but you're not thinking, oh, I'm in the next room eating cake, somebody's in the other room raping my kid or less than my child, you know what I'm saying? So it's calculating, you know what I mean? And people get a high sometime off of like the whole phoniness of it all, like, you know, like how close of comfort it is, how close it is, and that kind of stuff. It's just, it's sad.
Sick and it's sad.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, it's sad. People who were in those R. Kelly cases early on and who knew about stuff or whatever, they should feel really, you know, they should feel sick to their stomach to being a part of this, you know?
Yeah, there's so much. You know, it's bad when the reporters don't even want to report half of the sexual acts that he had allegedly forced on these women and men.
Excuse me.
You know, it's bad when the nosiest people in the world, journalists, don't want to report on half of these acts. And even like the ones that we've been discussing over the past couple of weeks, some of them we've had to coax and like really force it out of them. Others are just plain out refusing to talk about it. But you know, this was deep. We'll definitely have to do this again. You got any last minute thoughts you wanna say?
No, I mean, I guess one of the things is just you always have to try to be as much as you can, really noticing who is around you, who you're interacting with, and who you allow to interact with your children, you know, because, you know, you can't trust nobody.
You really can't. I wanted to bring this up really quickly too, because there's been a lot of cases where young girls have been getting groped by young men, either on the trains, on their way to, mass transit or coming from mass transit, like literally walking out blatantly in the street, getting like grabbed by their breasts and their behinds, and sometimes, their crotch. Listen, you have to be careful. Always be aware of people that are around you, especially in this time of COVID. Use 3 feet and 6 feet distancing as a rule. So people shouldn't even be trying to roll up on you. They should always be trying to stay away from you, just due to safety health guidelines. And if you do find yourself to be a victim of molestation or rape or any kind of suspected unwelcomed, non-consensual activity, never be afraid to dial 911 or tell somebody that will help you and give you the courage to go and then call 911.
Exactly.
All right, y'all. Peace out.
All right. See y'all later.
Later. Hey, yo. All right. What up, Brooklynites? Thanks for watching another episode. Please make sure to like and subscribe our channel and check us out every Thursday. Peace.